Hey there folks, today I want to share with you this great example of J.D. Crowe's rolling backup on the song Your Love Is Like a Flower from Bluegrass Album Band Volume 2. I'd like to start doing more studies of my favorite players' backup, and I think this is a really great place to start. It's relatively straightforward material relative to all the different things you could play, but the truth is that this is what J.D. Crowe often played on a lot of songs like this. There's a lot of other stuff that we'll cover in other backup studies, but this material is going to carry you through so much of the bluegrass repertoire. And the bulk of this lesson is just going to be showing you how to play these classic phrases, how to play this entire example, and then hopefully you're going to practice it and use it in your own playing, and use it to help you develop your own bluegrass language. So let's just dig in and take a slowed down look at that same example. Now you'll notice that in the original recording, which you should definitely check out, they're in the key of B, so JD's got his capo on the 4th fret. Just to keep things simple, for everything in this lesson, I'm going to play it in open position, but it's all the same stuff. If you want to play along with the original recording, just put your capo on the 4th fret and you'll be in the key of B. By the way, in this video, I'm going to show you everything that JD played in this example. But if you're looking for tablature for this video, or all of my videos, you can find that at patreon.com/EliGilbertBanjo. That's where you can find tablature for all of my lessons, as well as a bunch of bonus content. For instance, the bonus content with this lesson is going to be some examples of how you can use the phrases from this version of Your Love Is Like a Flower to play backup on other songs as well. So if you're into that, then go ahead and check it out. But otherwise, let's dig into Your Love Is Like a Flower. Now to break this down, let's just look at what JD plays over each chord. It starts out with 2 measures of G leading to a C chord. This first measure is one of the most common things you'll hear in the Scruggs language, and sometimes you'll hear people extend it to a 2-measure phrase that you can loop indefinitely, like this. But in this case, we're actually on our way to a C chord, so we've got this lick that transitions from one chord to another. So listen again and really try to hear how it transitions from one chord leading to the next. Then once we've actually arrived at our C chord, we have this 2-measure phrase. You can listen to just about any recording from J.D. Crowe, and if it has 2 measures of C, there's a chance that at some point he'll play this exact phrase. Sometimes he'll play this just about every time it goes to a C chord. And I promise it's not out of laziness. It really does sound great, and it's interesting enough, but it also stays out of the way of what's really more important, which at that moment is the vocals. After that, we return to the G chord for another 2 measures, and we have basically the same phrase that I showed you before, the 2-measure extended version of that first measure. And again, this is kind of just the default thing to play when there's multiple measures of G. There's plenty of other really interesting things you could play, but this gets the job done, it sounds great, and it stays out of the way of the vocals. And in this case, there's a small thing that we're doing to lead to the D chord. When we get here to this 2nd fret on the 4th string, we play a little slide from 2 to 3, which just gives this sign that we're heading somewhere, and then we land on the D. Then once we actually arrive at the D chord, there's a brief gap in the vocals so we can play something a little more interesting, which is this 2-measure phrase. And again, this is one of the most common things you can do over 2 measures of D. Earl Scruggs did it, J.D. Crowe did it. Just about everyone you've ever heard has played this lick. And even if you don't want to play exactly what everyone else has already played, this is a great way to learn some of this language because there's also a million ways to play this lick and licks like it. So learning this now is going to help you get there in the future. And like everything else we've looked at so far, this lick does a great job transitioning to the next chord, which is back to G again. And at this point, it shouldn't be too surprising, but we're back to the beginning with just about the exact same phrase, 2 measures of G leading to C. Which really just goes to show that you shouldn't underestimate the value of any of these phrases. JD will play them over and over and over again. It's not that we're trying to play something unique and special every single time we play a chord. We're just trying to support the vocals. We're trying to support the entire band. And sometimes that means playing something really simple and solid like this. And the same can be said when we get back to the C chord again for another 2 measures, this time with a slight variation. And when I say slight, I mean slight. All we're doing is adding a hammer-on here to the 2nd fret on the 4th string. It's a small difference, it's subtle, but it's just a good example of how these embellishments are always available to us. You're going to want to practice this lick with no hammer-on, with a hammer-on, and then also you just want to look at all the material that you play and see where there are places where you could add a slide or a hammer-on to what you're already doing. It doesn't fundamentally change the chord you're playing, but it can be a way to add some rhythmic interest or melodic interest, so it's worth just looking at some other places where that could happen. From that point, we're returning to G for a 1-5-1 turnaround. That's G, D, and then back to G again. And this is a really good example of dealing with 1-measure chord changes, both because you don't necessarily have to play a certain lick. That first measure, you're just rolling through an open G chord, but then when you get to D, there's actually a specific shape that you're playing in a specific pattern, a lick that works really well for 1 measure of D leading back to G. Then, of course, at the end, we return to G, where we play the most classic, common Scruggs-style G lick you can play, which you can put just about anywhere where you find a G chord. And that's the entire verse. If you don't have a ton of experience, then this might have seemed like a lot of information, but the truth is it's only a couple patterns. There's just about one thing we play over a G chord, just about one thing we play over a C chord, and then a couple examples of things you could play over a D chord. But that's just about it. And if you go listen to a lot of different recordings of J.D. Crowe, then you'll find a lot of these same ideas all over his catalog. There are certainly plenty of other interesting ideas that he uses all the time, ones that I hope to cover in more of these lessons. But I just want to make sure that you don't feel like you have to be playing something new and special every time you get to a new chord. The whole point of playing backup is playing backup. We're not the main event of the verse or someone else's solo. So whenever we're playing backup behind someone singing or playing a solo, something like that, then we want to stay in the background and add rhythmic interest, help support them, but hopefully not take away the focus. And beyond that, it's great to have these ideas as a solid foundation. If you find that playing through some of these examples, you can kind of play them, you kind of understand them, but you can't really play through the entire example or use these in context, then you probably haven't learned them quite well enough. The real value of this material is being able to take some of these examples and apply them to other places where you find the same chords or chord progressions. And there's plenty of songs that have these exact chords, sometimes even this exact chord progression. So it'll be really important for you to digest this information, but then apply it somewhere else. And of course, if you want some examples of how you can use these phrases in other songs, you can get that on Patreon. But in any case, I hope you found this lesson helpful. Feel free to subscribe to this channel, like this video, all of that stuff. But otherwise, that's going to do it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.